welcome you to this Monday edition of NFL Total Access. What's going on, everybody? Glad to be here with you. I am Rhett Lewis, the Pro Bowler D'Angelo Hall down on the edge. The Super Bowl champion quarterback David Carr is here with us. Guys, 10 days until the Combine.
10 days.
30 days until free agency, and we will begin right there with a guy who has the potential to probably be the biggest free agent ever. Tom Brady, set to become an unrestricted free agent for the first time in his 20-year career. And financially, it is more beneficial to the Patriots' salary cap to get a deal done prior to the official start of free agency. And Brady, of course, leads our QB 20 class as we welcome in our NFL Network insider, Ian Rappaport. Ian, where do things stand right now between Tom Brady and the Patriots?
Well, Tom Brady and the Patriots are still in the friendly talking phase. Really haven't got into hardcore negotiations. From what I understand, they really haven't talked numbers, which is the way it should be. There's no actual deadline until right before free agency begins. And as you mentioned, it would behoove the Patriots to get a deal done right before the start of free agency because there's a lot of dead money that they would be charged for if that does not happen. And as far as how the Patriots generally negotiate, what they do and what they've done in the past for free agents is basically set a price and say, this is what we believe your value is. If you can get that elsewhere, bring that to us and we will consider it. This is a football decision. It's a business decision. I would expect, even though it's Tom Brady, for them to do it like they have always done in the past. And of course, there's always a question of, will Robert Kraft get involved? Because he has said he wants Tom Brady back. In the past with Brady, he's only really gotten involved when it comes to just bridging the final sort of gap. He doesn't come in and assert this is what we're going to pay him. The actual choice of what to pay should lie in Bill Belichick, who, of course, runs everything in New England.
All right, Ian Rappaport there with the latest on Tom Brady. Ian will be back with us here shortly on another AFC team. But, guys, if we're looking at the key components to what might attract Tom Brady to another team, if, in fact, they can't come to an agreement in New England, you look at personnel, you look at scheme and coaching staff and ability to win, what ultimately, David, attracts Brady to another team?
Well, when I think about Tom Brady and his playing career, he's been in the same system for 20 years. He's been calling the same plays at the line of scrimmage for 2 decades. And so that would be something that weighed heavily on my decision if I was Tom Brady, thinking about it, what's going to look like if I leave and I go somewhere. Am I going to be able to bring in some of the things that I've had success with? The nice thing about what they've done in New England is he's ran every offense. He's been in empty formations. He's been in the I formation to win a Super Bowl 2 years ago. They've done basically everything. But there's still that comfort level of getting to the same checks, getting to the stuff that you've done for so long. And that's the brilliance of why they're so good is he's able to get it all to all those plays at any moment. And that's why it's so difficult to come in and play if you're a wide receiver, is there's just so much that you can do from the line of scrimmage. So can he take that with him?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is there a team that would fit scheme-wise?
I think personally, for me, the Tennessee Titans would be fantastic because you have good players. You have Mike Vrabel, who's there, who understands the Patriot way.
You have that New England culture.
Exactly, you have that culture. And so I think that would be something that I would think would be a nice fit.
Yeah, and you know, even for me, even more so the X's and O's, you know, I think it would be a little selfish on Tom's part to go into a new organization, a new team, and make them learn everything he's learned over the 20 years of his career. I think he'll come into, whether it's a situation like Tampa or the Chargers or even Tennessee, he'll come into that situation. I think he'll more so learn their playbook. Maybe it's some things that he likes to do himself.
More collaborative.
Yeah, more collaborative than him just coming in taking over. But you know, for me, watching the frustration in Tom Brady's play last year, it was at the receiver position, and that's why every team you see him tied to has receivers that can separate and win one-on-ones. And like I said, whether it's Tampa, whether it's Tennessee, whether it's the Chargers, they have receivers. And whether he ends up back in New England, I think the message he's sending is, guys, we need to get better at the receiver position. We need guys who can win one-on-ones. Tom's one of the smartest quarterbacks I've ever had the privilege to play against. I think he'll be okay if he ends up somewhere else. But, you know, like David said, when you've been somewhere for that long and you try to change, the grass isn't always green on the other side.
Well, it also makes you wonder how much he values leaving a career-long legacy. in New England.
How much do they want to win apart from each other also?
That's the other part.
Don't know either.
How do you weigh those two things? Again, about 30 days until we can continue to answer those questions for Tom Brady. Moving on here, after being reinstated by the NFL last week, Myles Garrett in an ESPN interview accusing Mason Rudolph of using a racial slur towards him, inciting the whole helmet-swinging brawl, to which Rudolph has vehemently denied. And today, his head coach echoing that sentiment in support, Mike Tomlin, on ESPN saying he was offended by Garrett's remarks in that interview. Went on to say his reputation talking about Rudolph has been tarnished because of the allegations, none of which was founded. He was a quarterback in losing circumstances at the end of a football game. Obviously, he was an active participant in the altercation, but a lot of the things that have gone beyond that I struggle with. So let's bring our NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport back here. Ian, Mike Tomlin doesn't usually come out and do interviews this time of year. Why did he and the Steelers feel it was necessary to go beyond just a statement here?
No, this was noteworthy that Tomlin not only spoke out, but spoke out so strongly in defense of Mason Rudolph, basically saying that not only him, but the entire organization took offense to the words of Myles Garrett, thinking that they'd put it behind him, and then to have these allegations resurface, which of course he called unfounded. The main reason, as Tomlin explained, was that he wanted to make sure Rudolph was properly defended. In other words, someone to come in and say, not only does Tomlin himself believe that this never happened, he said he has relationships all over the place, including with the Browns. No one brought this to him at all. But it's also worth noting that the NFL itself has come out not once but twice and say they found nothing to support, and they've gone through everything available, audio, visual, everything, nothing to support any of this. Meanwhile, you also have Mason Rudolph's agent, Tim Younger, who's also a lawyer, coming out and saying that Garrett's words were defamatory, and this is important, saying Garrett is now exposed to legal liability. In other words, hinting the possibility that a lawsuit could be coming at Myles Garrett.
Certainly interesting. All right, Ian Rappaport, thank you very much. Mike Tomlin also saying today that Ben Roethlisberger looks great, but added he's not doing anything. However, he has no hesitation that number 7 will be back on the field in week 1. Along those same lines, GM Kevin Colbert saying that he doesn't see Big Ben as having a drop-off in talent like other quarterbacks at that age level. So how does he then return to the Pro Bowl level, to the Super Bowl caliber level, coming off the elbow surgery, D-Hall, and also with this new personnel?
Well, I think the number one thing they need to do in Pittsburgh is get him some more receivers. When you think about Juju taking over that number 1 spot from AB, he struggled a little bit, and that offense struggled a little bit. And yes, we can all say that Big Ben wasn't there, and he will make a big difference. And I do agree with Mike Tomlin. I think he'll return to form. Big Ben, I was in that same draft class with Eli and Phillip Rivers, and I think the difference from Big Ben and those guys, he was always able to move the pocket a little bit, extend the play a little bit. You see a lot of the new age quarterbacks, they're doing it. Patrick Mahomes is doing it a little bit different, a little bit more flashy and things like that. But Big Ben was one of the original guys who was making throws with guys draped on him or extending the play, and letting his speed receivers kind of go out there and, and make a play. Pittsburgh has done a great job with finding receivers late in the draft, and I think they'll do the same thing to get him some weapons.
We saw some of that improvement from James Washington, from Deontay Johnson as well this year, so maybe that's something to build on as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that Ben makes the guys around him better also. I think we talk about how good the receivers are developed there. I think it's because Ben Roethlisberger has always been a guy that can make plays and honestly is a guy that's unlike anyone else. And so you talk about, was he going to be able to come back? I remember when we were in the lockout year, and I kind of told this to you guys earlier, he didn't touch a field, didn't put cleats on. He told me this in a preseason game from December all the way through that entire offseason, came in August. And by the way, he played well in that preseason game, ended up playing great in that upcoming season. So the guy is not going to just lose it. He has that natural ability of throwing the football. It's effortless for him. It's not hard. And you made a great point with his ability to move and buy time. That's what we're seeing from Phillip Rivers is kind of a stuck in the mud type guy right now, and you're a little concerned about him. But Ben still, even, he's got a little bigger beard. Maybe he's got a little more pounds on him. It'll just be easier for him to throw defensive linemen off of him, so I don't think he loses much.
Does his return make the Steelers a playoff team in 2020?
I think so, because they have a great defense. Their ability to run the football is because of the offensive line is still pretty solid. And then if you do what you want to do on the outside with those wide receivers, Juju, and you grab Washington, and he kind of steps up, maybe they grab another guy in a loaded draft for wide receivers, Ben makes this team a playoff team for sure.
And I'm saying grab another guy or two, but David's absolutely right. Ben makes these receivers better by his ability to buy time. As a guy can be covered, and Ben just that little sidestep, he extends the play.
You can't cover for 4 or 5 seconds.
No, you cannot. We've seen it time and time again.
And then if James Conner can stay healthy for an entire season, see what that does for their run game as well. In other Steelers news, GM Kevin Colbert saying that there's no ceiling or time frame on the possibility of Ryan Shazier returning to the field, and that the team will always support him trying to play again. The team placing Shazier on the physically unable to perform list this past season. Staying in the AFC North here, the Bengals, as you know, have the first overall pick in this year's draft. And Joe Burrow, the LSU quarterback, is fine with taking his talents to Cincinnati. Burrow telling the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that if the team selects him, he'll do everything in his power to be the best football player he can be. And Burrow said he will be in Indy at the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine presented by Verizon. All of the workouts moving to prime time, and we're kicking it off with the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends, and it all comes your way February.